Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brittnee Long, and I lead digital communications and corporate affairs at PwC. I had the pleasure of being the first insights analyst on our communications team about 6.5 years ago when we were solely external communications. Um, it has been so incredible to hear from all the experts today. And so today, I'm just going to tell you our story of our journey at PwC so you get a perspective of what it's like to actually put some of these things in place in a communications team. Before I get started, I would love to give a shout out to the performance communications team at PwC and a special thank you to Grishma Pandey, who could not be here with me today, but was a really key player in putting our materials together. So, a little bit about PwC. Some of you may have heard of PricewaterhouseCoopers. We've since abbreviated our name to PwC, and we operate a global network of professional services firms around the world with a focus on tax, audit, and consulting services. Our US communications team is an integrated team spanning internal and external communications, as well as enterprise change management, and my team, the digital team. We do have a performance communications team as part of our digital team, which has two main sides. Our insights team, which is we're focused on deliverables, as well as our analytics team, which is more the focused technical developers, data integrators, and dashboard developers. So we've all been on this journey in communications to prove the ROI of communications, help elevate communications to have a seat at the table when it comes to business strategy. And when our comms leader started in the role about 6 years ago, we had a conversation with the Prudential CCO at the time, and she introduced us to her value chain. And we really liked it and have adapted that for our communications team. And as you move up the value chain, the expectations of communications go from being request-driven needs to actually being consulted to give strategic business advice. And I'd argue that it is the work that our insights and performance communications team have done that really has helped enable communications to move up that value chain and be more strategic. And even as the deliverables evolve to become more strategic on the core communication side, so have the deliverables from the measurement and insight side, which we're really proud of. So I'll tell you our story, but we started where many people did with the coverage tracker and trying to improve that. When I was a team of one, the first stage was just thinking about quality over quantity. We were not ready to be connected to business outcomes, but we started by just taking this spreadsheet and output from our monitoring software and adding columns, which my agency partners really hated me for, but it really was the foundation for being able to share, what is our coverage connected to, which business priorities, what type of story was it, did we secure it, or was it a passive pickup from other elements and items that we've published? But today I'm going to tell you about 3 actions that we've taken at PwC to help improve the value of what our team delivers in performance communications and become strategic advisors to the business. The first thing we did was introduce a new measurement framework. And that framework was designed to do a few things. First, put business outcomes on the same page as communications outcomes, primarily to remind our communications team members that they should be asking, why are we launching this thing? What is the intent or purpose of the communications activities that we're doing? And there are a couple of examples of high-level outcomes that we consider broadly, but obviously we wanted to challenge our team to be curious with the business about the why the work that we're doing matters. And then from a communications perspective, we wanted to make it more simple to understand our metrics and what we're measuring. And ultimately, at the end of the day, our communications activities came down to whether we wanted to drive attention, shift attitude and perceptions, or inspire action. We wanted this to be applicable for both internal and external uses, and we also wanted it to help our team members think about their goals beforehand. Oftentimes, we were pulled in at the end of a campaign launch to help PR the results, but by introducing this framework, we were able to rightly question what the goals and intentions are before we began, so that we had a measurement plan going in and a framework for discussing our goals and results. And that really helped us reframe how we communicated results to our stakeholders in the business. And so we moved away from activity reporting to being able to connect and tell a better story about what our efforts had helped contribute to. And you'll just see a couple of examples there that were more meaningful to our business, as well as our communicators. The next thing we did was join forces with other parts of the organizations to connect communications and business metrics together. About 3 years ago, PwC introduced a reimagined people experience called My Plus. Now, at the time, in our insights work that we were doing a lot of social listening, a lot of monitoring of the external scans and spaces. And we found that one audience in particular, our employees, had a lot to say on social media, whether in Reddit forums or more specific forums like Fishbowl. And that generated this product we called Workforce Listening, which really served as a finger of the pulse of what was on the minds of our people on a bi-weekly basis, and filled a gap that our people team had between the global people survey that went out every year. But PwC introduced a reimagined people strategy consisting of 4 elements. And we had an opportunity, because of the work we were doing in the listening side of the house, to have a seat at the table and come up with a measurement plan for this people experience. And it was the first time in my career communications was side by side with the business to help create the plan, not for just measuring communications impact and results, but for the entire program. So we worked with each of the functions responsible for efforts in the 4 quadrants you see here to understand their goals, help them to define measurable results, and ultimately package that asset for showing progress or results to not only firm leadership, but the board. Our North Star for measuring success paired operational and business metrics like participation in the programs that were launched with things that comms traditionally listened for, with workforce listening and other channels like sentiment and attitudes. Our goal was not only to show progress toward My Plus, but to give some actionable insights about how we needed to pivot as a business, understand what people were confused about, and also inform what we needed to communicate more about. But that partnership led to an outcome that helped the business see that communications had a lot more to offer, even beyond the communications channels. The skills that professionals in this field have are applicable beyond communications. And so we had a perspective to share in how to measure soundly more broadly, and we were able to do that with My Plus. The next thing we did was put our communicators' hats on for a little bit and think about our team as communicators. And so we thought of ourselves as having an intelligence channel strategy where each of our deliverables, reports, assets were channels for the intelligence that we delivered to our stakeholders, either within communications and beyond. So the work that we do may be a recurring newsletter about trends in the industry, what our people are saying or doing. And the audience could be executives or fellow communications team members. We produce a lot of dashboards, which give our team access to real-time data on demand. And of course, we do a lot of slide presentations because professional services firms love slide decks. But thinking about how we can deliver insight to the audiences in the way that resonate with them has helped us improve the value that we support for the business, but also think about our team beyond just tracking hits and delivering a share of voice slide at the end of the day. Today, we are thinking about AI, just as many of you are, and I have a lot of things that I'd love to try when I get back. But the way that we're using it at PwC so far is really to increase the speed to insight. We have to analyze a lot of data, a lot of commentary, and because our partnership with the business is expanding, we're looking at communications channels, but we're also looking at some non-traditional channels as well. Surveys, comments in webcasts and things like that. We're developing AI agents and bots to serve as research assistants to accompany our insights analysts and help find white space opportunities for our business. And what I'm really excited about is creating agents that help us analyze and interpret. We are in the very, very, very beginning stages of that, but I am looking forward to seeing how the technology progresses and what we can build from here. So thank you for listening. I know lunch is following me, but it was really great to chat with you all today.
Thank you so much, Brittnee. See, it pulls it all together for what everybody's working on. That's amazing. Open up questions for Brittnee? Yes. Please wait for a microphone, Tim Markline.
Really impressive work, Brittnee. I particularly like the audience-centric insights and changing how you deliver and what you deliver, but also the slide on the measurement shifts or the language that you used. And I'm curious, outside of your team, how did you drive that change across the rest of the communications and corporate affairs group?
Great question. It's been a journey. I initially went into this working thinking that everyone was as excited about data and technology. And they would look at me and say, Brittnee, no numbers. So we did a few things. One, we baked it into our annual team strategy. We made data the center, that was at all the rage at the time. We put data at the center of our team strategy and made it an expectation that our communicators were thinking about data as part of the planning process. Two, we got really practical, to be honest. We laid out, and I can share probably in a separate asset, we laid out what the communications planning and execution process looked like and spelled out, here are the ways that you can incorporate insight and technology into each stage. So reach out to your insights analyst to do a landscape analysis at the outset. Set goals with your business, and here are a few questions you might be able to ask them to help inform that, all the way through to A/B test your social messages to see what is performing better. Giving those practical applications really helped take some of the guesswork, because I think it was very overwhelming for our core communications teams at times to think about this. But that practical roadmap really helped. And then last but not least, we put on our training hats and said, we had open office hours for people to ask questions. And we we started to expand the scope of what we considered our role to be as as an insights team, to say, yes, we will help train you on how to use a technology if you need access to that thing. Do you need a dashboard or a deck? We became more adaptable in terms of how we delivered that work, but we set an expectation up front, and leadership is really important part of that.
Good question, Tim. I have a quick follow-up to that question, though. So do you now have more data-minded, or do you have more of a collaboration about people who are more excited about data now that they see the results?
We do. What's been really incredible is that sometimes I think the business is more excited than the communications team. The business will approach us and say, hey, I saw what you did for this other part of the business. Can we do that too? On the internal side of the house, where we hadn't traditionally done a lot of measurement, we've really created a framework for how we think about enterprise change management, with communications and our measurement team kind of at the center of establishing that foundation. So yes, but there are always people that are, not going to be as excited about this. And we try to meet them where they are and try to meet them with, what can we help you with today? And build a relationship and a trusted relationship to be able to share, hey, here's what we're doing over here, this might be helpful, or get them more comfortable with some of the other more complex deliverables.
No, that's a great example. I know we have a couple more questions. Daryl Sperry in the G-Lay. Please wait for a microphone.
Thank you very much. Brittnee, that was brilliant. I loved the tailored measurement framework that you had around attention, attitude, action, and all that good stuff. That was great. You said something really interesting about being able to derive greater insight by working across the business and getting data and inputs and things like that from other places. Did you ever experience any pushback from anyone internally? One of the challenges that people often cite is they're not given access to data from Google Analytics or data from CRM or other things. Did you have any pushback from anyone, and how did you overcome that if you got that pushback?
I think there is a little bit of territory building, and when it comes to data and data sharing, I'd say that we tried not to be invasive when it came to those other teams. Maybe I'm not asking for access to your data. Maybe I just want to know what the fact is so that I can tell a story when I'm sharing the results. I don't think that we've had a lot of pushback in terms of willingness to partnership, because for the most part, we've grown it organically and grassroots. We're not typically knocking on someone's door to say, hey, let's do this thing together. For the most part, we're taking advantage of opportunities as they come. And as those become case studies and stories and examples, we found that the work and the demand has increased. So we just manage our expectations of we're not going to be everyone's go-to insights team. But for the business areas that want to take it further, we're here. And for the business areas that have a less mature approach, we meet them where they are. And it's grown that way.
Next question from middle section here. The light's right in my eyes, but I see a hand. Oh, I see the bandage now. That's
Thanks,
why I saw
Brittnee,
it.
for those insights. Since a lot of us are from agency side of things, and often in working with our clients, we have to do that job of convincing them to go beyond the basic metrics or the vanity metrics. What advice, you being inside the organization, had a lot more currency and access to people and resources to do what you needed to do, but somebody from an agency trying to say, for example, do the same work that you did from being inside the organization, would you have any advice as to, try this approach, or any one big piece that you would say, as an outsider coming in, try this approach?
I will say we face similar challenges because we're almost an agency within, the broader function. So we aren't necessarily on weekly calls with our stakeholders internally, or sometimes we're getting information secondhand as well. The approach that I coach my team to take is, how can I make my stakeholders smarter about something, or how can I help them in their next meeting have a tidbit or an insight to share that helps improve their relationship with that business leader, or build upon the relationship that I'm going to rely on them to have, so that we can do better work together. And I think the other piece is being really resourceful. We have built relationships in many parts of the business just by being involved in the work that we're doing, or meeting them at events and things like that. And those have helped us understand the business in a way that we might not be able to through our core conduit. And then doing our own research to understand, what is this business going through? What do they need? A lot is out there, even that our communications team may not be aware of. And so I think being resourceful, identifying as much information as we can, building those relationships, and if necessary, sharing a list of 3 questions. If you have a chance this week when you're talking to the business, would you mind getting their insight on these 3 things? That's been really helpful for us too.
Thank you.
Another question here.
Thank you so much, Brittnee, for this insightful presentation, and also to highlight how your function has evolved from this tactical point of view to this corporate affairs function with this holistic view. And you were highlighting in the new framework that you are using the concept of brand strength and these outcomes. And I'm based in Spain in a think tank focused on intangible asset and reputation. And I wanted to ask you if you are using other kind of intangible asset metrics or meaningful metrics as brand strength, like reputation, employee engagement, inside of the balance scorecard, and how these kind of indicators is helping you as an organization to make better decisions.
From a brand and reputation perspective, we, in our side of the function, are not scoring. We are evaluating progress, positioning. It's quantitative, but there's not a hard number that we drive toward at the end of the year. On the internal side, for employees, we do have an annual survey. It creates an indicator that we call an engagement score that we do measure year over year, and that's managed primarily by our people analytics team, but we partner together to understand what that looks like. We also look at, where we can, specific audiences. So what does our buyer perception look like today? What are we known for with our target buyer audience today? Have we made progress in those areas? And those are some of those brand strength elements that we're measuring.
Okay, thank you so much.
Samantha's being very patient, so thank you. Right here.
Thank you for the inspiring presentation. I talk to communications directors like most days, so I kind of make a study of them. And all communications directors struggle to prove their value internally. And I feel there's sort of the, say, typically more male way of doing that, which is to kind of shout off the rooftops about what they're performing and what they've achieved. And that's one way to do it. And there's what seems to be your way, which is more around trying to figure out what problems you can solve and kind of quietly going about it and just demonstrating value over time and building a level of sort of soft power that way, which I think requires a level of determination and ambition that you clearly have, and I think a lot of other comms directors would be quite inspired by. I was wondering what advice you would have for people who are in your role in other big organizations that aren't necessarily the easiest to operate within, who would like to start to build their value, who aren't really comfortable doing it necessarily in a very loud way, but really feel the need to show that they can do more than kind of the box they've been put in. Like, where would you recommend that they start with that?
I think part of it is the fake it till you make it. I think sometimes as communicators, we operate from a position as if we need to earn our function. But we all know that communications functions are a necessity. And I think we need to act that way and maybe not be as maybe not lack that confidence, right? I think the finance team doesn't have to justify why they exist in a business function. I don't think the communications team has to do that either. And I think for such a long time, we've been in this prove the ROI of X, which is a derivative of marketing, which typically has larger budgets, larger spend, and I think we need to shift the conversation from how do we prove the ROI of communications and operate as if communications is a critical component of key business operations in this day and age. Maybe the people who established what business organizations look like didn't think about communications as a function, but we know that it should be there. And so I think we need to operate in that way. And I think that people, especially executives, they like to be shown, not asked in some ways. So I think if you just start somewhere and start doing and trying things, seeing what resonates. We used to produce a deliverable that I call it the canvas, and it was meant to be a trendscape analysis of internal and external activities and management. It worked in some parts of our team and it didn't work in others. And I think it's okay to cut out the things that don't work, but once you start to see something working, just continue to do that and build upon it, because someone will hear it, and someone might say it's not right today, but it's right tomorrow. So I think just being a little entrepreneurial and saying, hey, I think this might be helpful. Let me try this and see how it goes, has been helpful without having to say I'm going to do a quarterly report that calculates the ROI and tries to connect that contribution and all of that.
Interesting, thank you.
I love that so much because I've regularly said, like, the CFO doesn't have to ask permission to do an audit. It's expected. It is a basic business expectation. And comms shouldn't be fishing for budget, like, oh, now we need this. It's like, no, if you are a legitimate function, this is baked into everything that you do. You know, and if you're scrambling to send a report twice a year, it's probably a bigger challenge. Maybe Ilya's doomsday suggestions are closer than we think. We have time for one more question for Brittnee. Okay. Kali? Okay, perfect. All right, Brittnee, thank you so much. Fantastic presentation. Please join me in welcoming Brittnee. Thank you so much.